Hi everyone, and welcome to another video about video games with me, Rob, here on the Geek Show. And today we're talking about Fall of Light Darkest Edition. Now, this is a game developed by Runeheads and published by 1C Entertainment, and it's out now on PCs, Macs, PS4s, Xbox Ones, and Nintendo Switches. This is the PC version I'm going to be talking about, which is available via Steam. It did appear first on Greenlight back in 2017, but it actually had a full release earlier on this year. So what I'm talking about is the final release version, not the Greenlight version. Now, I understand that it's had some generally mixed reviews, and I also understand that people are calling it a cross between Dark Souls and Ico. And I get it. I understand totally, after playing the game, why people make that comparison, why they say it is like Dark Souls and Ico, because at the end of the day, Fall of Light isn't really doing anything new. It is a game that plays a little bit like Dark Souls in a sense, in terms of the challenge and the boss monsters, the very, very dark and gloomy environment, that sort of thing. So I can understand the comparisons with Dark Souls on that front, and the fact that you, as the knight, have to escort your daughter Aether around and you have to hold her hand and stuff like that. That is very, very Ico. So yes, there are environmental puzzles to solve, you alongside your daughter, everything like that. Now, this is your standard kind of fantasy setup in that it's a story-driven dungeon crawler type game. It's set in a world consumed by darkness, and you play the role of an old warrior who has to take your daughter to see the last ray of sunlight. Now, the whole setup for this is that in the beginning there was only excruciating screaming void, wherein twisted souls writhed about, imprisoned in nothingness. Then the darkness was pierced by Luce, or Luce, however you pronounce that name, and with her came warmth and order. The time of men had begun, and would last many eras, and in the 14th era, there was nothing but darkness. That's the era that the game takes place in. And so, as I said, you take on the role of the knight. You have to escort your daughter, who is also known as the Indigo Child, for some reason, even though she glows yellow. Now, some things to bear in mind when you are playing this game. It is a bit like Dark Souls in that there is kind of a ramped up difficulty spike as you progress the game further and further. The number of enemies that attack you does increase at a rate that can be uncomfortable. I didn't find it uncomfortable. I found it challenging but not uncomfortable, but some people may have found it uncomfortable. The difficulty of the bosses, again, it's also one of those things. The bosses can basically one or two shot you. And in order to deal with them, you have your dodge mechanic, which is very, very helpful, but also a hindrance at the same time. Now, that's kind of where everyone kind of says it's like Dark Souls. Yes, okay, again, I get it, totally. Makes total sense. And I'm not going to disagree with anyone who says that it's like Dark Souls in that respect. What I will say is that while Fall of Light doesn't do anything new, while it doesn't break new ground in any real way, it's still an enjoyable game. And it's enjoyable from the point of view of the story and the environment. Yes, it is a challenging game. Yes, you are escorting your daughter around, and that does become a hindrance. See, one of the things about this game is that you can't die. It's as though your souls, who are everlasting, and you just basically reset. Now, when your daughter dies, you basically have the opportunity to run up and revive the flame of her soul into a full-on glowing body, provided you've killed all the enemies that are around at that point. Your daughter can also be kidnapped and put in a cage, and you have to hunt her down. That's something that can happen as well. When you die, you basically respawn at the nearest area where it's basically a checkpoint. So it's a little bit like the old school platform games that were around, you know, the ones back on the Mega Drive and the SNES and the Commodore Amiga and things like that. The ones where you basically had to restart the level when you died. It's a little bit like that in that respect, because the enemies respawn, you have to fight them off again. and if you have to rescue your daughter at the same time, it becomes a bit of a chore, and it can get a bit repetitive in terms of you dying repeatedly, starting at the same point repeatedly, and that can become frustrating, and I understand that. That's perfectly fine. But that is how the game plays. Those are the mechanics of the game. And that I can understand will get on certain people's nerves if you are trying to marathon the game in one go, which I wouldn't advise, to be honest. This is one of those games where, because it's a certain type of game, right, you don't need to finish it all in one sitting. You can take your time with it. You can play it for a bit, get frustrated, leave it, come back to it later on, okay? That's basically how we played those platform games back in the day. One of the things is that modern gamers don't really have that kind of mentality. They feel that they need to finish everything all in one sitting, all in one go. Take 5, relax. There's no rush. Some issues with this game though. Number one is there are some issues with the collision detection. When you are escorting your daughter, for example, you can see on occasion, especially when you're turning corners or going around obstacles, you can see there's a clear separation between you and your daughter. There's some issues with the animation. There are some issues with certain character models. Some of the lighting could have been better. And generally, I think that you are a bit too underpowered. Now, you can grind your level. There is a little trick to grinding your level. Whenever you reach one of the statues of power or strength or whatever it was, and your daughter kneels, and you basically gain an extra health bar, you basically also respawn all the enemies. So all of those easy enemies that you killed off, you can go around killing those off again and gaining more experience. Then you basically use a statue of power, respawn, gain more health, and keep doing that for a while. But that again is grinding. The game gets repetitive when you do that too much. See what I mean? So there are ways that you can improve. Now, there are also other aspects of the game where you can also become stronger, so it becomes a little less repetitive. There are a number of different battle stances, like two-handed, dual-wielding, sword and shield, that sort of thing. There's 10 different weapon classes as well, and you have a mixture of ranged and melee weapons. You have this nice little combination of weaponry and armor, which makes you more able to deal with bosses, but that's also something that you also have to grind towards and work towards, because what you'll find is the bosses that are protecting these special weapons or special armor or something like that are also quite challenging, and so you have to grind a bit more to beat them. You see where I'm going with this? There's a lot of grinding. Be that as it may, if you take your time with it, and if you basically go off and do something else when you get frustrated and just relax, then this can be an enjoyable game. Challenging, yes, but it can be enjoyable. Okay, it all depends on how you approach the game. If you're willing to give the game a chance, and if you're willing to just take your time with it, then it can be an enjoyable and a fun game. But if you're going to sit there and you're going to try and finish it in one sitting, then you will probably end up hating the game. If I had to liken it to anything, this is one of those games where it's like a song that you basically you don't mind hearing once or twice, but then you hear it perpetually for the next 24 hours, time after time after time after time after time. By the time you get to the end of that song's 24-hour loop, you're going to hate that song. And I think that's what's been happening with Fall of Light, and that's the reason for the mixed reviews. It's not a bad game. It's not a bad game by any measure. It's actually a pretty solid game. But people, by their nature, want to finish it all in one go and get frustrated and take out their frustration on the game, blaming the game because of the fact that they've tried to play the game for too long. Take 5, relax, give it a try. So, anyway, let me know what you thought of Fall of Light, Darkest Edition, regardless of what you've played it on, whether it's the Switch or the PS4, the Xbox One, or you played it on PC or Mac or whatever. Let me know what you thought of the game. Did you play it on Greenlight? Did you play it on the full release? We're always interested in finding out what other people think of the games that we feature on our videos. So leave your comments below. And if you want to see more videos like this one, then hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and I will see you all on the next video.